Welcome back to the show. So, there's been an avalanche of info since yesterday, but do not worry, we are here to pull it all together, and it's more than just alpha. There might even be a new Blizzard video game. In fact, it's not even a might. There is. It's a lot to talk about, and let's just get stuck in with War Within. So, the War Within Alpha's out. It went out on Thursday after a press event saw content creators, including me and press, place some of it earlier in the week. And that means there are impressions, data mining, and interview snippets everywhere. For my impressions, you can check out our video from earlier. In a few words, I like how Blizzard are being a bit more ballsy with the story. There's kind of teeth to it, and there's a lot of just game-changing features that's all kind of insane. Big picture, it's just clear that a lot of feedback to Dragonflight is actually being acted on, and even it's being acted on in the longer sort of time frame. Holly kind of mentioned some things that aren't making War Within, but that they are trying to do better on, and that's directly inspired by, as an example, some aspects of the middle and end of Dragonflight's patch cycle not super resonating with people. So I thought that was really interesting indeed. Speaking of interesting indeed, well, if you go to bellular.games, that's where you can actually join up as a member, and over there you will get early access to videos. You'll get ad-free access to videos. We've got things up there like Matt's deep dive into loading times and how to optimize your add-ons so that basically WoW loads way faster. He's even got a really cool console command that just slashed his loading time. So he's got that video up there for early access. Also our lore walking podcast on Xalatath and a bunch of other things. And of course it is also the best way to support what we do. Let's be real, advertising is rubbish on YouTube. That stuff is really annoying, yet I want to make our videos bigger and better all the time. So the more support just sort of means we can do that. As an example, this microphone that I've just put my hand on, not particularly great. We've got a big new expensive one arriving that should make our videos sound a lot more crispy, and that's just the sort of thing that, well, that's what it goes into. But okay, bellular.games, a big thank you to all of our members there. Let's get into the video. We found out a lot of different bits of data, so let's just go through all of it. And potentially one of the bigger bits of news is what a lot of people think is a new allied race. So, data mining has found what appears to be a secret ally race called the Haranir. We know very little about them, but they sort of look like evolved dark trolls. Some are suggesting these might be the missing link between trolls and night elves. Some are saying that they evolved because of whatever lies underneath Kaz Algar. More on that later. But either way, I think they look really cool. They've got a ton of customization, and Blizzard haven't said a single word about them, even though they do have all the telltale signs of eventually being playable, like, say, with Nightborne a while ago. Very curious. Next then, well, remember we found out that we would be going underground in patch 10.1 because of a little whoopsie with file names in a beta? Well, that may have happened again because somebody has found an icon called Goblin Raid. So, I don't know, do you fancy going to Undermine in 11.1 or something? And backing that up, we do actually have a Goblin dungeon boss, so I don't know, maybe there's Goblin stuff going on. I do remember one thing, though. Back in Shadowlands, we saw a certain Mr. Gallywix. He was going about in, I've forgotten the name of it, I can't believe this, the Mega Dungeon, right? So, we don't really know what he was doing. He was talking to a bunch of the brokers. I may be thinking then, could he be planning some sort of big return? And at the end of the day, if he was to work with Xalatath, work with kind of void-related things, I mean, it's Gallywix. He would totally do that. Next, though, let's talk about our Season 1 dungeon rotation. One thing has got me kind of going, ugh, but another one has actually got me really excited. Grimbatal is back. That's obviously because of, like, the Twilight's Hammer and the Xalatath connections. It just kind of makes sense thematically to bring that dungeon into the rotation. Grimbatal was, I think, one of my favorite dungeons back in the day in Kata, so I'm actually really excited that it's back. Now, of course, we all know about Xalatath's history. If you want a little bit more of that, we did a 30-minute long lore video that people have been loving. Anyway, we have 4 of the new dungeons, and then Mists of Tir na Scythe, Necrotic Wake, Siege of Borealis, and Grimbatal. So, Tir na Scythe, I'm happy enough with that. Necrotic Wake, I'm sure they'll make it more fun. Anyway, I think one of the bigger questions is, will the maze still be in Tir na Scythe? I wonder. Okay, let's move on to some stuff we learned in interviews. So, in an interview with Towley, Blizzard said that the Mythic Zero dungeons in the future will be the same as the Mythic Plus rotation instead of just the current expansion, but we're not sure if that's going to be true for Season 1. So, by default, expect the 8 new dungeons to be the Mythic Zero ones, though it could be the case that they'll make it equal to the current Mythic Plus rotation, which I think ultimately would be just good for the longevity of the game. Next then, speaking of dungeons, one of the key things for a lot of people is follower dungeons. And here's the good news. Knowing that follower dungeons exists that lets the devs cook with how much dungeons are involved in the game's story. And that's something we noticed on the alpha, right? Basically, okay, shit goes down, and you meet these people from the Rookery. And because of narrative reasons, the Rookery is a dungeon that you go into, right? Now, that dungeon is full of, I suppose, narrative stuff. It's directly connected to the plot of the Isle of Dorn. What's really cool is that because Blizzard now knows that people can go in there stress-free with AI followers, they can actually have that dungeon be a set piece of the story. And trust me, this is a really good thing for the game. We've absolutely seen the benefits of that in, say, the expansions of Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm really excited WoW can now do this as well. Then we've got another bit of huge news, and that is PvP's focus is changing. Now, I know a lot of people love arenas, but a lot of people also don't love arenas, and honestly, as much as I've enjoyed them in the past, I am one of those people who doesn't love arenas, and that's why I'm particularly excited, because Ian said on the WoWcast that the focus on PvP will be the solo queue rated battlegrounds. It is now going to be considered the default way to play PvP, and personally, he believes that it is kind of overall a better experience than just Arena is, or at least a better experience for more people, because it's got the cooperation, it's got the objectives, and essentially now that they have a proper format for doing PvP in World of Warcraft, they can now start to pump out the content, and they were very clear that while one battleground is coming, there will be more to follow. I don't know about you, but personally, I could dabble in arenas, but I don't think I could just continually do that forever, but I do know that the times where I've hopped into battlegrounds to maybe gear up a character towards the start of an expansion, I've really enjoyed it, so to me, this is super exciting. Next then, warbands. Well, here's what Ian had to say.
WoW is going to shift to everything being account-based.
Yeah, sounds pretty good, right? So, we're getting a shared bank. The final tab currently costs over 2 million gold. I wonder if they will keep that. But also, right, there's the shared bank, shared transmog drops, and this is the amazing thing. A currency tab where you can just move certain currencies over. So you know the way normally we're waiting for Blizzard to add a vendor that lets us buy an account-bound item to then mail to our alts? Well, now there'll just be a bit of the UI where you can just send things to your alt. All in the UI. That is amazing. Also, of course, we've got Warbound gear. So if you're doing content on your main's got a really big item level, you'll also be able to get Warbound gear, which will be a lower item level, but can be sent to your Warband. Also, shared renowns for this expansion and Dragonflight. And the way they're going to do that is that basically your Dragonflight progress will be merged so that the highest renowns in your account are the ones that are there on your Warband. Basically, alts are the future of World of Warcraft, and they're fully embracing that. Hell yes. Next, crafting then. NPC work orders are going to be a thing, and that basically just means you're not being bottlenecked by people putting work orders up, and I think this is just good. It means you can go do some crafting as a little bit of a, I don't know, hobby thing without having to rely on the player economy side. I think that's really positive. Also, inspiration is dead, concentration is replacing it. And it's kind of similar, but instead of being pure RNG, it is a resource that you build up, store, and then can use to guarantee an improved craft. Now, this I think is absolutely awesome. It means that, say, if you're doing a work order for another player, and that player is going to want the item to be crafted at the maximum level of quality, if you have banked up the concentration, you can guarantee that for your customer, and of course, you can charge appropriately. I think this is far more healthy. Next then, another thing is something that Holly said in her interview with Mr. GM, that the casual and mid-core audience in WoW has been underserved and they are trying to fix that. She also said that to me, and she was really frank about how, look, we've kind of under-delivered for that mid-core audience, and a lot of what they've put together with their live game team is entirely designed to get that mid-core audience, the casual audience, just more content and more things to do. Of course, for full details, you can check out my interview with Holly, which I believe we posted yesterday. In terms of things, though, we're not done yet, so you'll probably want to be leveling in Mop Remix ahead of War Within, but just in case you don't, it turns out the amount of XP that you'll need to hit 70 is being cut in half. Actually, a bit more. Here's a chart from, of course, our friends at Wowhead. This shows a total of a 55% reduction in XP needed from 1 through 70, with the 60 to 70 bracket being cut by 75 to 80%. Now, obviously, they are adding levels 70 through 80, and basically what I think here is they're trying to make it so that the overall time to max level stays the same, even though they are adding 10 more levels and a whole bunch of story. And speaking of that, well, I've just covered a bunch of the major major news. If you're interested in the sort of bits and bobs of the expansion, well, there'll be a chapter thing, and you can skip this spoilery bit. For those of you who are a little bit more mad and crazy and want to have lore fun, let's talk about spoilers. Okay, here's some of the stuff that we found. Magni's lost his faith in Azeroth, and this is represented by how he literally doesn't quite have the shine that he used to. Dalaran is attacked by Xal'atath and Nerubians. It gets destroyed and it crashes into the Isle of Dorne, and Khadgar is presumed dead. Now, as an avid fan of Stargate SG-1, which of course Khadgar used to be one of the main characters of, I mean, come on, Master Braytak never dies. Khadgar, I'm holding out hope for you, buddy, and I do have a few ideas. Now, what is interesting to me here is just talking to devs. They're all very clear that, like, they feel like WoW actually needs big stakes and things properly happening again, but not in a silly Shadowlandsy way, in a more like tangible, direct way, but also they obviously do not want to be repeating the mistakes of the Burning of Teldrassil. They seem very aware of that. Ultimately, yeah, I'm fine with all of this. I do hope that Khadgar somehow survives, does some absolute John Madden Khadgar shit, because that's what Khadgar does. But if he does go, well, that can happen. It's all about whether Blizzard does it well or not, and we don't know if they will, because that's not going to be something testable in alpha and beta. That is basically the intro scenario thing. Anyway, it's all very attention-grabbing, and the idea that the Nerubians, led by Xal'atath, can actually be a serious threat, that is a really good thing, because right after Dalaran, they are constantly hounding you in the first zone, and they feel like a real villain who is actually trying to screw you up, and I like that. Then the Earthen. So, of course, while we're going around the Isle of Dorne, we learned plenty about the Earthen, and you know what? They're actually, they're kind of warming on me. I like them. Next, then, we gotta go beyond the playable story in the first alpha build and talk about a half-elf named Farron Lothar, who has got slightly pointy ears and no left arm. She is a lamplighter, and that seems to be a rather dire occupation of keeping the lights on in Hallowfall, and she certainly looks like a major character. Now, it seems then that the Arathi, who splintered off to follow basically the vision quest to Hallowfall following that big light crystal, it seems they brought at least one person from the Lothar bloodline and some high elves along with them. Now, the files show a lot of internal spells for quests involving her and Anduin, so you do have the example here. So you do have a situation where it seems like we'll have an Arathi, a blood relation to Anduin Lothar, basically teaching Anduin how to have faith in himself and the light once more. And if you didn't know, Anduin's name is, of course, a send-up of Anduin Lothar, who is one of the older heroes of the Warcraft franchise. Then there's these Haranir. So there are a few named ones, right? And there's a lot of NPC entries for at least like one of them, so they seem like a recurring character. And they've also got a connection to nature magic, and this is exciting because there are roots beneath Azj-Kahet that have been spotted in press kit images, and there's tents nearby that match the outfit of this Haranir character, and that makes me think that these are almost certainly the roots of Elune Ahir, the world tree that Elune and Aenar planted together only for Aman'Thul to throw a big rage bender and tear it out. So, realistically, we obviously have no idea what this expansion is going to be unearthing until we get stuck in, but a picture is forming in my head. And also, this looks like a Genosaur or a Magnetor in the Ringing Deeps, and that brings me back to the deep lore of the planet of Draenor, of course, homeworld of the Orcs. It's really awesome, and I've been wanting an excuse to do that video, and now I can do that big lore video, which I'm pretty hyped about. Okay, so this is a bit closer to home, a little bit further away from Season 4 though, which is happening in just a few days. Now, Mob Remix, based on the test weekend, is unbelievably fun, and according to a Datamine splash screen, it will be going live 1 week after 10.2.7. That's probably going to be just over a month or so, maybe 6 weeks at most. I cannot wait for you guys to jump into it. Like, man, Matt was absolutely glowing about his time. It is so cool. Next. Oh, how about another Blizzard game? I know, that's a bit of a curveball. Blizzard have yet another unannounced project that is being worked on. We were pointed at a few job listings by people in our members' Discord over at Belgrade.games, so yeah. Thanks, this is cool. But basically, they need a narrative director, a creative director, and design directors, amongst other things. There are mentions of multiplayer missions, mission design, and things that weave narrative elements and storytelling into all of that, and a heavy use of AI. as in, like, AI for enemies and allies that you fight with, not generative AI, so don't worry about that. Who knows, maybe it's AI companions in addition to or instead of multiplayer? I mean, we literally can't tell anything else, but it is always fun to see them start hiring major roles so shortly after they killed their last project. You do just have to wonder, new ownership, some new management, maybe they are kind of gathering themselves, perhaps thinking about what the next 10 years actually looks like beyond just their big franchises right now. We're near the end of the video. Is that it? Well, no, it's not actually. That's far from the end of things. I don't want to keep you here all day though, so keep an eye out on the channel for an awful lot of things coming. If you want more alpha stuff in depth, then head over to our clips channel. That's where there'll be lots of clips of Matt and I going over everything that we have found on alpha with a fine-tooth comb, and of course, we'll be playing alpha all weekend. I have a lot of video plans, so check out the clips channel, and there should be some interesting clips there. Otherwise, I'd highly recommend you check out our Xalatath lore video. People have been really enjoying it, and it's one of those things. We launched it. It basically got like no views. It was 10 out of 10, the worst of our recent videos. It totally bombed, but the watch time was 50% higher than the average. So what we've seen over the last while is just the graph keeps on like climbing up and up and up and up and up, and now the video's doing well. So yeah, we're all just kind of like here looking at YouTube Studio cheering on the Xalatath video. So I don't know, go support the cause. Anyway, that's it for me. This is a truly exciting time. And hey, we just got to go on a big adventure together. I love alphas and betas. It just gets me going. Have a wonderful day. See you next time.